Hello, this is FG, back with EU4 Anbennar. I believe this is part 10. I'm hoping that this time will actually be the finale. I played a little bit. I also fired an event just with the console to get this out of the way because I could not be bothered to sit around here and I want to actually move through the campaign, so I just did that. The Artificers have long been allowed to go and check because of the integral role they play in Orghelovar. We now know this was a mistake. Not only are they too driven by greed, even by Dwarven standards, they also think they are above the state. Their exploitation of their fellow scientists is hindering our own progress. It is timely increase the military presence in our hold and put these troublemakers back in their place. The rebellion plotted by our artificers has shaken our advisors to the core and forced the Enlightened Ten to reevaluate their laissez-faire position on artificer regulation. Today, every state artificer member around Orghelovar, regardless of their participation in the planned revolt, awoke to find their attendance mandatory in a meeting with the local officials, with soldiers stationed as peacekeepers in each of our holds to ensure the proceedings go smoothly. In these meetings, the new code of law and standards devised by the Council was put to them, with each member given the choice of complying in perpetuity or being stripped of their position and barred from practicing artificery in Orghelovar again. As expected, despite the tension and distrust, very few members have chosen to leave their positions. Under the new laws, all artificers must submit detailed proposals and receive approval directly from the Council for all research conducted. Additionally, the possessions and distribution of artificery tools and inventions has been severely limited, and possession of them without a license or valid research grant entails a hefty fine. Lastly, the Enlightened Ten have installed their own loyal representatives as the head of each major artificer branch, and have provided state-accredited accountants to ensure all funding and income will be tracked. No longer will Dwarven greed hinder critical research. With these steps, artificers throughout Orghelovar have been thoroughly restricted and reduced to mere tools of the state to be used for the betterment of our nation, rather than greedy middlemen extorting their fellows. Finally, our scientists can begin researching anew. Alrighty. I had to move all of my armies out so that they didn't get used because the mission required you to have it required you to have 10 regiments on each hold province, which is like 25 provinces at this point for us. Yeah, these guys can drill. These guys can drill. They can drill. They can drill. Alrighty, and what can I do with... Look at the state income. That's insane. Okay. Whole digging operation, Hildier, Argordston. Okay. Dwarven 40, organize the expedition. Raise morale. For supplies. Organize the troops. Start expedition. A narrow entrance. The cave ends in a very narrow opening between the stone remnants of a tree and a large boulder that rests against it. Our mining engineers look at it doubtfully. We can try and cut pieces out of the tree and boulders to widen the entrance, but the whole cave ceiling rests on it, the lead engineer says. We'd have to work real carefully and with support beams, and even then it's a bit risky. It might be safer just to dig past here and create our own entrance in the greater cave system. Widen the entrance. It appears we were not the first ones to find this cave. As we widened the cave opening, we found the remains of a long-dead dwarf next to a broken pickaxe and a sack full of valuables. Presumably, she was the last member of an expedition into this place who got stuck while she was so close to the exit. While it is certainly not the best omen, the loot next to her corpse is a still welcome addition to our coffers. A small stream of water pours out of the cave walls and tracks its way through the bed of stone leaves on the cave floor. After some distance, it drops down through a hole in the ground through the stone branches. The waterfall audibly hits a body of water, but after lighting up the depths, it appears that there is a solid ground next to it. We could descend here next to the waterfall to follow the flow of water, or we could keep moving through the cave and ignore it. Descend the waterfall. The expedition descends from a rope next to the waterfall one by one, landing on the shoreline of a large underground lake. It shimmers in a beautiful silver, with minerals under the water reflecting the light of our lanterns, and fish appear to move near the bottom. The lake is fairly deep and appears to have a cave underwater, through where the water flows further. Two expedition members who are already experienced swimmers immediately offer to see where these underwater caves go. Further down the lakeside, there is also a cave that continues a path above water. When light is shown into it, however, it is bent in a strange way, and many expedition members are uneasy about going there. We'll take a dive. Soon after the divers enter the lake, they come back claiming to have found a path towards the next cave. While it is a fairly long swim, there are several air pockets on the way there. After having sealed all the gunpowder and watertight barrels, the expedition begins to make their way through the underwater caves. Diving in teams of two, they make their way through the narrow passage, hauling their gear behind them. The last few divers, however, take a worryingly long time, but just as the expedition members starts preparing to dive back to look for them, they emerge from the water carrying trinkets and gemstones. They tell of water spirits who took them by the hand and led them through the tunnel towards their homes. There they were welcomed and given gifts before being sent on their way again. A nice fae. Don't see many of those. Usually they're kind of assholes. Inside the hollow tree, a small opening leads into a massive vertical cave. It appears that this was once the inside of a massive tree, already hollow before being petrified. A stream of water enters the cave next to the entrance we came through, and flows down the edges of the cave. Strangely, it appears to have formed some sort of spiral staircase out of the rock over time. While it looks structurally sound, the rock is awfully slippery, and covered in a thin layer of moss-like water plants. The cavern is too deep to descend by rope, however, so we have little choice but to use the staircase. One by one, the expedition members carefully make their way down the water-covered steps, using climbing gear to grab hold of whatever they can. Slowly but surely, they make it down. Every slip-up immediately corrected by a strong grip on a piton or a fastened rope. A shared sigh of relief sounds as the final expedition member steps off the staircase and onto the cave floor. A strange treasure. At the bottom of the hollowstone tree, the water gathers in a shallow pool from where it seems to disappear into the porous rocks below. Something's glistening, an expedition member yells. The water's deposited gold here. Let's grab it greedily. The expedition members quickly dive into the pool, gathering as much gold as they can. Soon cracks begin to appear in the brittle rock below, and After the divers quickly get to the shore, the floor collapses. The near-death experience does not seem to matter to the proud divers, who excitedly show off the large lumps of gold they found. Manpower, orcs. Send these guys down this way. Inspecting the cave walls, the expedition engineers find a very faint hollow sound when tapping on one of the cave walls. They claim there's clearly another cave on the other side and propose opening it up so the expedition can move forward. Let's take the pickaxes. Working carefully to avoid a cave-in, the expeditionaries dig their way into the cave wall. After an hour of work, there's finally a light shimmering from the outside, and a few pickaxes strike later, there's finally a pathway out of the inside of the stone hollow tree. Yeah. Whatever, we like gnolls now. Ancient war golem. Yeah, we'll do that. Forced floor. As the expedition emerges from the inside of the massive stone tree, they step into a humongous cave. This must have once been the forced floor. Stone trees stretch from the cave floor to the roof like gnarled pillars, holding up the rock above with twisted stone branches. It is unclear just how far into the distance the cave stretches, as vision is obscured by the massive stone trees, but more surprising than anything, this long-dead forest looks alive. Water trickles into small streams over the cave floor. Patches of mushrooms and serpent's bloom gather around the bases of the stone trees. A number of sylphs flutter onto a nearby patch of mushroom, looking inquisitively at the expedition before losing interest and flying away. Expedition menu. I gotta upgrade it first. Expedition menu. Route 40, organize the expedition. For supplies. Organize the troops. And we send manpower, 10,000 men. A split in the trail. The large stone forest cavern leads into several smaller caves, most dead ends. One entrance, however, appears to have been an open trail even before the forest was turned into stone, and initial scouting has not found a dead end yet. As the new expedition follows the trail, they soon come to a divergence in the path. The actual trail appears to move downwards, following a treacherous decline. A second path, however, appears to form a narrow opening between two stone tree trunks embedded in the cave wall. Carefully descending the steep decline with a piton and rope, the expedition members move past the treacherous loose rocks one by one. After a tense moment, the last expedition member finally makes it to the bottom of the climb. Make Arion arrival. Stone Dryads. As the expedition moves through what appears at first sight to be a regular cave, they are suddenly encircled. Stone Dryads, which appear to have been petrified along with the stone trees around them, peel off the cave walls. They bare their claws threateningly, but do not attack yet. I'll just attack them. Though nearly impervious to bladed weapons, the stone dryads soon give way when fought with blunt force weaponry, or simply grappled and smashed into the cave wall. As the final remaining dryad shatters into pieces, an expedition member notices a strange shine in its remains. It appears the creatures have strange ores contained within their bodies, though they do not seem to correspond with any known metals. I'll just take military infrastructure. Long closed rift. A stone arch engraved with strange symbols is embedded in a cave wall between two stone trees. There is nobody in the expedition who is able to decipher the symbols, but it appears to have at one point been a gateway, perhaps leading to the Fey realm. While any connection to this place has long been broken, there is still considerable magic present in the arch, and activating it might be useful. Still, we might also just blow the thing up and not bother with such risks. Let's wield the magic. After several attempts, the mages in the expedition finally managed to activate the archway. The symbols engraved shine a bright blue light, and magic is concentrated and then released in a powerful pulse. As the gateway attempts to reopen its connection, however, it is unable to find the proper outlet for this power. With a powerful explosion, several expeditionaries are killed instantly in the blast as the archway disintegrates. Oh well. It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Bridge chasm. A chasm blocks the way of the expedition. A single fallen stone tree bridges the gap, but while it looks secure enough, its bark appears to be smooth and slippery. As the expeditionaries prepare to cross, however, one notices something glimmering in the deep. They ask permission to descend down the cliffside to investigate. As the expeditioners descend the chasm, the source of the glimmers comes into view. Several dwarven remains, each with several broken bones and equipment and loot by their sides. They must have been part of an expedition a very long time ago. The darkness here is at the bottom of the chasm is oppressive and barely dispelled by the lanterns and torches. The expeditioners quickly take what they can from the corpses before climbing up the sheer rock. Stone fairy ring. A ring of large stone mushrooms stand in the middle of the cave. Encircled within are several mummified remains of fairies, their face warped in agony. What the expeditionaries' primary notice, however, are the strange statues and jewelry of gold and silver laid under the mummified corpses. This probably isn't going to go well, but... oh, it does. Though some were initially hesitant to enter the circle, it soon became clear that whatever magic used to exist here has long since dissipated. The expeditionaries greedily search through the pile of valuables, pocketing whatever they can find and showing off their finds to others. Nope, at 100% professionalism. Okay, we can get a new deity. No. Let's try Dagran Everbeard. Exposed roots. The trail ends by the base of a very large stone tree. Its roots are exposed, obstructing the doorway hidden behind them. There are strange scratches on the cave floor, and a mage suggests that some spell is used to move the roots aside as some sort of security measure. If we can figure out the spell, we can access the door behind. Of course, if we have some gunpowder left over, we can just blow the doorway to bits. Magical means. As the mages of the expedition finish casting their spell, a brief silence follows over the group. Then, with a deep rumble, the roots begin to move. Pulling themselves back, they form a kind of wreath around the doorway, and as they fall silent, the gate opens without making a sound. Behind it, a large hall is revealed, lined on all sides with Strange statues. And we want... take absolutism. The Stone Root Caverns. The hallway stretches out a good distance, with several doorways leading out into other caves. It is unclear who built this hallway and why, but it appears to serve as a connection point between the great many caverns that stretch throughout the roots of this ancient part of the deep woods. It will take a long time to explore all of this, but for now we can congratulate ourselves on a job well done. We have no need for monthly splendor, but why not? I just like doing the expeditions. Nice the troops. And start the expedition. Hildir, keeping to the code. While most of the caverns through the roots of that had been explored, another path was recently found. A cave wall turned out to be illusory, and dispelling the illusion revealed a new entrance. This was considered suspicious enough to investigate, and an expedition has been equipped to explore it. The rock here is porous and brittle, and two passages lead out of the cave. One goes up, one goes down. We're dwarves, we go down. At description camps. There's a great many holes in the wall here, about the size of a fist. The expeditionaries are wary of them, and they are soon proven correct. Small, malformed fae emerge from the holes to slash and bite at everything they see, only to quickly retreat back to where they came from. As the expedition quickly retreats, they set about to devise a plan to get through this. A proposal is made to smoke the creatures out of their holes with gunpowder and torches to force them out into the open without a way to escape. Another expeditionary argues that this would take too much time and supplies, and instead suggests simply advance through the caves in tight formations so as not to allow the creatures to attack any unguarded sides or backs. Soon after the expedition started setting fire to the holes, the creatures began to flee out, weakened and trying to escape the smoke. They are quickly dispatched, clearing the way to advance deeper into the cave. Yes, we want him. Nope. Name's here. That's nice. Invention of a decade. With the artificers firmly put back in line, our researchers can concentrate once again on developing new inventions. This microscope should soon finish the testing phase, and the Enlightened 10 will report back once Graham Glassgrinder finally presents his invention to them. We will watch his progress with great interest. At last, Graham Glassgrinder has presented his finished microscope to the Enlightened 10. His design ingeniously avoids distortion by using two different types of lenses, one to magnify and one to focus the light into the eye of the viewer. It is modular, allowing a viewer to easily adjust the magnification and focus of the image by slotting in different lenses. He has even provided a portable version that fits in a monocle, sure to be a hit with the workers who commonly have their hands full. Before the council and a group of assembled craftsmen and traders, he scoured the floor of a grand cavern and easily located the minuscule carved rune. Such was the power of his microscope that he correctly identified that the rune was carved using 2 tools of different bore and length by examining the strokes left in the rock. He has been appointed a position at the forefront of our council and will given free rein to oversee the production and of the precisely manufactured lens needed for the microscope. With this invention, we stand poised to revolutionize many aspects of science. Already we have fielded research proposals for the examination of vegetation, volcanic rock, and dwarven flesh. We can only imagine what new knowledge this might bring, but we can be certain that once again Orghelovar's position at the forefront of science has been magnified. The Boneyard. The expedition reaches the entrance of a large cavern to discover a grisly scene. A pool of blood and gore covers much of the cave floor, and floating in them are dead fae of many kinds at various stages of decay. Someone or something has been feeding on them, as there are clear bite marks from a large creature all over the bones. There appears to be some valuables strewn throughout the carnage, but few of the expeditionaries appear enthusiastic to actually wade in and take them. We loot them. Several expeditionaries carefully wade through the pool of blood, trying to avoid the worst of the gore as they retrieve valuables from the corpses. Although none of them enjoyed themselves, they emerged with a good enough amount of gold and silver to make the ordeal worth it. We can also do that. It has become increasingly apparent that someone in the expedition is not who they claim to be, or at least not anymore. Several expedition members have been found mauled in places where no one outside of anyone from the expedition itself should have been able to reach. Paranoia runs rampant. Nobody trusts anyone anymore. It'd be wise to start eliminating suspects based on who they could have been for what murders to eventually find the culprit. Alternatively, we could just stab anyone. Let's take notes. After identifying several expeditionaries who could not have been present for any of the murders, a system of watches was set up in order to try and catch the imposter in the act. And sure enough, after no murders took place for quite a while, one of the expeditionaries shifted into the form of a monstrous hag before a dozen witnesses, attempting to make another kill. Through quick reactions, the would-be victim was saved and the hag was driven off. Wounded but far from killed, the monster fled into the caves, leaving a trail of blood in its wake. Build that. Okay. This has one. This is not spawned. Want to destroy the courthouse. Pop this up. There we go. It's good. Yeah, we accept. These guys can drill, these guys can drill. These guys can drill. After following the trail of blood through the winding caves, the expeditionaries finally find what must undoubtedly be the way to the hag's lair. A stinking maze littered with bones and rotting meat still lies between them and the monster, and the hoard of wealth it must have amassed in all the time it has preyed upon these caves. With the size of the maze, it might be better to split up, to more quickly explore it and mark dead ends, while this would undoubtedly give the hag less time, though it would also make smaller parties much more vulnerable in the meantime. As the expeditionaries comb through the maze, mapping it as they go, they soon find that some of the small parties have been killed as they were isolated from the larger group. Still, the strategy appears to pay off, as one of the small parties soon reports back that they found the way forward, allowing the remaining expeditionaries to quickly get out of the stinking maze. You know, sometimes you gotta break a few eggs to make a cake. Finally, The expedition stands before the Hag's Lair. It is not cut out of the cave as the maze before was, but rather wrought from bits of wood, bone, cloth, and other materials that were presumably scavenged from the depths of the cave. The large ramshackle structure looks sturdy enough, but also highly flammable. Still, burning the place down might also deprive us of the treasures the creature has amassed over its reign of terror in these caves. After making preparations, the expeditionaries enter the Ennis Hag's lair, cornering the creature in its own home. Unable to break through the wall of blades and magic it is faced with, the hag finally exhausts itself. Blow after blow does not land. Finally, the creature succumbs to the many wounds it has sustained and slumps dead on the floor. With great relief, the expeditionaries search the monster's abode and find many treasures hidden in the darkest corners. Cleared of vermin, these caverns should provide many new opportunities for us. While certainly not as beautiful as the great caverns above, these maze-like passageways still hold many opportunities. Now we are the only ones who know the way. We gotta develop something. Do that. Open up the envelope. Expedition menu. Yeah, don't care anymore. Yeah, artificers are kinda good. We'll do Mechanist. Start of something new. In the chaos of the Serpent's Rot, we abandon our scientific principles. Instead of conducting repeatable experiments and clinical trials of possible cures, we believed in every kind of half-baked idea and desperate theory. We had no infrastructure to deal with the masses of victims, no way to track the spread of disease accurately, and worst of all, nobody to analyze why the rot spreads so swiftly and destructively. The devastation wrought by Serpent's Rot cannot be allowed to reoccur. We must be better than this. That is why the Enlightened Ten have announced plans for a new and innovative project taking place in Orghelovar, the construction of a dedicated center of Dwarven medicine. Once completed, the finest medical scientists, alchemists, and doctors in Orghelovar will be relocated to positions inside the new facility and put to work immediately. Their first task will be to determine what caused Serpent's Rot, and their next task will be to prevent it from happening again. In the future, the facility will serve to research all kinds of diseases and ailments, new and old, that may affect dwarfkind. Although we have made many advances in other fields, a unified scientific theory that explains why we suffer from diseases and infections still eludes us. It is the hope of the Enlightened Ten that this investigation into the Serpent's Rot will provide a foundation for just such theory, and that eventually we may eliminate the threat of disease altogether. To begin our investigation into the rot, we will need the Center of Dwarven Medicine to be fully operational and access to the Serpent's Cave. As far as we know, the rot began from the cave. The progenitor of the rot may still be present, whether it is magical or mundane. The prime suspect for that rot was named the Serpent's corpse lying at the bottom of the cave, but we cannot jump to conclusions yet. Once our scientists have examined the area and taken samples from the cave and the serpent itself, the great investigation will commence. In parallel with the investigation into the Serpent's Cave, the Enlightened Ten have greenlit a knowledge-gathering operation to determine if any other nation has made progress on the study of the disease. A delegation of doctors will travel around Halan searching to see if any other nations has made progress in the study of the disease. The Serpent's Rot has shown us just how vulnerable we still are. The real threat to progress is not found in hostile foreign governments, but rather the illnesses that plague the population without regard for race or standing. Our knowledge of medicine is worryingly lacking. We are severely unprepared if such an epidemic should break out again. We need dedicated doctors that can commit all of their time to understanding this invisible and incomprehensible threat. Since our investment in the Center of Medicine in Orghelovar, our knowledge of medical science has progressed, but this progress has stalled since the end of the Serpent's Rot. While the plague did trigger rapid investments and progress in medical research, it is far too costly to wait for another disaster to incentivize further research. We should centralize all of our medical knowledge and research in Orghelovar so that our Center of Medicine can live up to its name. As our scientists near the Serpent's Cave and the effects of the rot become more and more noticeable in the surroundings, even now there are still derelict dwellings, unlit forges, and abandoned supply trains where there was once thriving communities. In the area surrounding the cave itself, there are still telltale signs of a mass exodus of those who were healthy enough to flee with all they could carry. Belongings and keepsakes are strewn around haphazardly, and a grim forest of ash-covered pyres lines the roads. One of the few known attributes of the rot is that it was airborne, and so as the scientists approach the cave, they don hermetically sealed masks and suits prepared by our artificers, connected to pumps that draw air from safe reservoirs located outside the cave. Each scientist is also attached to a sturdy rope leading outside, where the backup team waits with doses of cure to pull them out at the first sign of danger. Carefully, the team makes their way down the unstable shaft towards the cave. The once wondrous cave was mostly destroyed in the huge earthquake which precipitated the beginning of the rot. However, our initial surveys suggest a small channel left in the rubble may lead to the original lake. The scientists are to make their way as far as they can, taking samples of anything of note. The tunnel is partially submerged and lined with crushed bioluminescent plants, oozing a glowing paste, samples of which are dutifully taken and passed back up the rope. As the rocks grow sharper and more debris blocks the way, the team pauses to clear the way and place supports to hold the rubble in place. They cannot afford to have their suits punctured, or they will need to return immediately. After hours of shuffling forward and clearing rubble, the floor suddenly drops out into the lake proper. It is in a stroke of amazing luck. It appears that what remains to be a tail segment of the serpent lies directly beneath it. Using an extendable pole tipped with a pincer, they gather samples of the serpent's remaining skin, bone, and sediment beneath it, as well as a few samples of the weakly glowing water. Then they pull twice on the rope to signify their mission complete, and begin the long shuffle back towards the camp. Once samples are safely back in Orghelovar, they will be categorized, analyzed, and closely examined by using our ever-useful microscope for any abnormalities or similarities to samples to those that have been killed by the rot. Coal mining, massive shaft. This is coal. Coal. That's coal. A mysterious crystal. With newfound cooperation between mages and scientists, we have discovered a wealth of the secrets and peculiarities of magic, normally closely guarded by jealous mages. While we are spoilt for choice with offensive uses for magic on the battlefield, there is very little capable of protecting our common soldiers from a mage assault. Research into wands and magic fields reveal them to be somewhat effective, but far too costly and fragile to deploy at high level across entire armies. After many failed research proposals and much wasted state funds, just when the council had begun to give up hope, an erstwhile merchant spy of ours by the name of Galen Cardnoris entered the council's chambers and asked for an audience with the enlightened. Once he was granted it, he spun a wild and obviously embellished tale of his journeys across the remains of the Golden Highway. Apparently, while resting in a tavern in Azkassur after single-handedly fighting off a Lich King and Storm Elemental, he heard an intriguing story. At the bar, a drunken Raheni maid was ranting to anyone who would listen about a savage beast from the command. Apparently, the mage was forced to flee his home to avoid the command's persecution of mages. Normally, he would have crushed their armies with a sweep of his hand, but the hobgoblins possess some material capable of nullifying magic, rendering normally formidable warrior mages easy pickings for their forces. Carnoris approached him, and after a few more rounds, the mage offered to sell him a piece of this material for an exorbitant price, far more than Carnoris was carrying. Recalling that the Enlightened Ten were promising great compensation to anyone who could provide information on how to counter mages, he promptly rushed to the banks of Azkassar and took out as many loans as he could. Scraping together just barely enough, he returned to the tavern and purchased the material from a now rather sober mage. It is this material which Carnoris proudly presents to the Enlightened Ten. It is a solid black crystal, roughly polished and shaped into a neat cylinder. It bears many resemblances to volcanic obsidian, but Carnoris insists it is different entirely. Actually, a quick examination reveals that it is just in fact simple obsidian. Even the center has been hollowed out to cheat Carnoris of as much material as possible. Still, Carnoris insists there must be some truth to the rumor and begs us to investigate. Though we certainly won't compensate him for his foolish purchase, we will at least do our due diligence and mobilize some of our spies to search for any further rumors of this material in Azkassar. The scars left by the war and magic in our country have still not healed. The very idea of this karashi, a material that can neutralize magic, is enough to spark fear in our mages. It might trigger another revolt. We cannot afford another conflict tearing apart Orghelovar from within. Need these guys to be 60 loyalty. There we go. Production income is at least 30%. Call merchant. Put artificers first. If we can somehow harness this Karashi, we would need a small army of artificers loyal to the state, ready and able to fully utilize this material to its full capacity. Even if our research into Karashi is unsuccessful, artificery is clearly the future. Preparing such a force would be a valuable investment. Okay, let's build a furnace. It's got a, yeah, I think everything's got a furnace. Wow, that's dumb. I don't know why they attacked that. No, no, these guys can stay here. This one. This province also needs a fort. Oh, I'm getting a call. Alright, I'm back. Ramparts here. Why not? Ramparts here. So we can get a fortress. Visiting Canor. As the cave samples are being categorized and studied at the Center of Dwarven Medicine, a delegation of our doctors has returned from a knowledge-gathering mission at the Alchemist Guild in the city of Varain, famous for their potions and herbal remedies. The alchemists of Varain are unfailingly friendly and cooperative with our doctors, even mixing a tincture to alleviate the head doctor's arthritis for no charge at all. Unfortunately, like most nations the delegation has visited, they had little to offer of the knowledge we seek. While their extensive herbal library and generations of alchemy experience offer fantastical insight into diagnosing and curing symptoms of a patient, they are mostly unconcerned with what caused the symptoms in the first place. Many alchemists treat the body as an impenetrable system that is too complicated to understand fully and attempt the much easier task of controlling the outputs of the body, symptoms of a disease. This method is effective in the short term per patient, but unsatisfactory in the long term and contrary to our scientific principles. We had also hoped that they may have some insight into the white pestilence which once ravaged Canor as the serpent rot ravaged its serpent spine, but here again they came up short. They knew no more than the average Canorian peasant on the matter, that the pestilence was a magical disease perpetuated by an evil which this is of no use to us, particularly because our scientists have already ruled out the rot acting upon or with magical energy, and it is an distinctively mundane disease. While their disappointment only slightly alleviated by the free potion sample the Varani provided in lieu of knowledge we wanted, the delegation begins the preparation for yet more journeys in the name of science. Yeah, we keep this guy. Free stability, always nice. atmosphere. Learnings of an elder. Just take Diplo. What's Silverforge up to? You know what? Time for the big war. Let me just work on my armies a little bit, and then we'll be good to go. Mechanicum soldiers. What do those guys look like? These guys look pretty intimidating. Build this army up. That army up too. Gonna real quick just deal with these guys. Mining accident. Studying the sample, Nuremberg Glassbeard is hard at work at the center of Dwarven medicine, examining a sample of the serpent's corpse under his high-resolution microscope. When the samples were first brought to the center, there was much excitement and theorizing from the doctors, each eager to prove their own theory of the disease. As time went on, most of these theories were disproved. Diseases do not generate spontaneously from dead matter, nor are they caused by foul odors or negative emotions. One theory that remains viable is as ancient as the rest, the idea that somewhere in the air there exist tiny particles that can cause disease when inhaled. Many had thought with the advent of the microscope these particles would be found immediately, but the microscope instead revealed such a wealth of tiny new structures, particles, and organisms that it has been nearly impossible to categorize them all, let alone determine if any of them cause disease. The knowledge-gathering mission was likewise a failure, only highlighting how all of Holland comforts themselves in treating the symptoms and ignoring the cause. Glassbeard has shown his own somewhat radical theory. In his opinion, diseases can only increase and decrease in severity depending on how many of the disease-causing particles are present in the body. Even in safe environments, with all these diseases still grow sicker over time. Those with a disease still grow sicker. Thus, the particles must be in some measure alive and capable of reproducing. He searched the sediment, rocks, and water fruitlessly for anything that moved or reproduced, but anything that was once alive died in the choking dust and low oxygen of the collapsed cave. Today, he finally gets his lucky break. In this section of the decomposing serpent, rich in nutrients and mixed with the weakly glowing cave water, he observes tiny rods swimming around. As time goes on, these rods divide in two, and then each half regrows and divides again, and so on at a shockingly fast rate. He begins to worry they may never stop producing. They die just as quickly, creating a microscopic wasteland before his very eyes. Hurriedly, he takes another sample of the rods, this time introduces the serpent's cure to it. Immediately, the rods stop splinting. This is the ironclad proof of his theory. The rapid reproduction explains how such microscopic beings can become a life-threatening problem so quickly. Unfortunately, the rods are killed by many other mundane substances, and even pure water can kill them. Could something so fragile really survive in the sturdy body of a dwarf? Through the night, he continues working. He vows to himself to finally crack the mysteries of the rot. Will be Nuremberg Glassbeard. Alrighty. And we want to go for Optal Kanzad. Send an army this way. This army comes down this way too. Probably gonna have to cut the episode off here soon, but we'll see how much we can get done. Send cannons over. this. We're gonna take offensive. Right here. That way. More conversions. Oh, crack a Dwarven also managed to get the bedrock. That one. Okay, what we want is mostly just the dwarf crown fragment, to be quite honest. But if I can grab this region. What else can we do? Do that. This guy over that way. Those guys back that way. Bring one of my artificer armies back too. I'll take it this way. Sparksfully good. The solution. Take this as well. In his center of Dwarven medicine, Nuremberg Glassbeard muses on diseases under candlelight. Covering the walls and floors around him are sketches of his microscopic observation in jars of various jellies and liquids perched precariously on stone shelves. On his desk sits a response from the Enlightened 10 regarding his theory of disease. He posited the rot was caused by tiny rods he observed, which he named Bloth goblins for their rapid breeding and movement, desire to invade places they shouldn't, and most of all their tendency to kill dwarves. The council agreed he had discovered an organism of great interest, but thought he did not successfully prove that he had caused the rot. Indeed, though he had found a similar organism, he had not been able to find the specific Bloth goblin in any living dwarf, as all who had the rot were either dead or burned or wholly cured. His attempts to find acceptance for his theory outside of Orghelovar were even less successful, being greeted with ridicule and derision. Instead, many other dwarven nations have already rationalized the rot as a magical punishment from their ancestors for allowing the serpent spine to be invaded all those years ago. Glassbeard knows if he only had a person with a rot before him, he could isolate Bloth goblins from their blood. With an audible crack, he sits up, ramrod straight in his chair, as an idea strikes him. He has already succeeded in isolating Bloth goblins from the original samples and growing them in large jars of broth made from the serpent's corpse. If he were to ingest Bloth goblins from these stores and develop the symptoms of serpent's rot, would that not finally prove his theory? As he prepares to rush to the lab and recruit some doctors for his experiments, he stops to scribble a quick will exhorting his descendants to continue his research. It matters not if this experiment kills him, so long as it saves many other dwarves in the future. However, if his sacrifice is not to be put in vain, then the world must know of it and its consequences. He will need the support of the Enlightened 10 to publicize the study and what it will mean for science, and to convince the nations of Halan to finally take notice. So we need relations with them. Orghelovar, Bulwar, Rahen. Guess this is my option. Orghelovar, Rahen, Yanshin. South LS. It's also my only option. Western Canor. Who doesn't hate me that much? Well, actually I'll improve relations with them. And guess I'll improve relations with Vern as well. versions. Kronstadt has been sieged. Dromac. Tiltigahar. This is an artificer army, yeah. They should obliterate them. Yep, stack wiped. Okay. It's few lost. That is unfortunate. He's a new leader. There we go. 80,000. Development. Oh, got this army down here. If we bring them up, then we can likely defeat this stack right here. these boys up. Take monthly war exhaustion. Okay, what else? Wish they would surrender. Like, we've already won the war. Just prolonging the inevitable. Okay. Reconvene that army. Just dump some more points in development. That should be good. Nope, still don't want to surrender. Oh, how I wish they would surrender. more sieges. I'm gonna send this army over that way. No, I'll just deal with that. Jade of Grunstendad. Before the Green Tide, before Caspanor, before all Dwarvar, there was the Jade Dwarves. The mightiest amongst them bore the great jewel of jade, intrinsically crafted and immaculately polished for the fruit of centuries of labor. When the assembly convened for the first time, this gem was handed to be added to the dwarf crown, symbolizing the High King's writ extended all the way to Rahen and Yanshin. When all Dwarvar fell, Grunstendad remained, and forged an empire of its own. All things must end, however, and an array of malcontents brought the Jade Dwarves low. Eventually, the Jade of Grunstendad, along with Grunstendad itself, fell into the hands of the command. It did not remain in their hands for long, however. It is now ours, and we will not relinquish our grip as easily as they did. Okay, this army comes this way. Okay, that's that army. This army comes this way. I actually want to go through that. And that way. I believe all of these guys need to unite. This army can come to Orghelovar. Okay. Oh, and this army needs to come Gorvazanbrung. Okay. This army can move all the way to here. This is all right culture, right religion. Yep, that's good. Once I get all of the troops back, I'm not actually gonna hit the button yet. That's gonna be for the next part. Per relations. Okay, that's one. That's with them. Okay, and now we can just influence nation. That. Influence nation. And Vern. It's a nice influence nation. South OS, and we need a Bulwari friend. Yep, we can still influence Farmerhar. Oh, no, we can't. Yes. Okay, maybe we'll just have to improve relations with Wivenheart instead. Oh, these guys have been sitting here. Just move one up to Hamd is here. Influence Nation. Relations with Wivenheart, Influence Nation. Yeah, whatever. Okay, I'm going to do some work on this. So this is going to be it for this episode. I'm going to just do some work sort of behind the scenes. So next episode we will do some fun stuff. We're going to reforge the Dwarf Crown and hopefully that will what was I thinking about? Hopefully if that takes away our mission tree, then I'll just get rid of it. So that'll be it for today. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.